Warning, the following video is going to be kind of dumb. Hello everyone, my name is Jesse, and welcome to my channel. So recently, the new Jackass movie came out, Jackass Best and Last, and I went through to see it, and I had some thoughts on it, but I also it just kind of reminded me of the whole series, and so I went down a little rabbit hole, which was just the Jackass, getting obsessed with Jackass again, the phase hits you like every year. I just kind of want to talk about what is Jackass. Some people may not know the full lore and impact that Jackass had when it was released, and how fucking crazy it was. By the way, this is the first YouTube video I ever made, showing my face and talking, commentary video, so if this video sucks, I'm really sorry. I hope that my video making skills get better, I guess, I don't know. So first of all, I want to go over the movies, and then while I'm going over the movies, I'm also going to say the background of what was happening in these movies. And then also I'm going to share some personal stories about Jackass and just my fond, happy memories of watching these guys. So I hope you enjoy. So the main appeal of all these movies was the friendships and dynamics between the main cast. One of the reasons I personally love it so much is you can just tell that they're pretty good friends and that they actually enjoy each other's company, and they're kind of funny. I mean, the whole movies, that's the whole point. They beat each other up all the fucking time, but they still remain pretty good friends, I think, even to this day. So the main cast all consists of Johnny Knoxville, Bam Margera, Ryan Dunn, Steve-O, Wee Man, Preston Lacey, Chris Pontius, Dave England, and Danger Aaron, also known as Aaron McGehee. Which each of the cast kind of had their own dynamic duo. Bam and Ryan were best friends since high school, and they kind of just did everything together. They also had their own spin-off show. Well, it was kind of Bam's spin-off show, but Ryan was always with him. So it was Viva La Bam, and also Bam's Unholy Union, which was about Bam's marriage. It didn't really last long, but we'll get into that later. But there also was Steve-O and Chris, and they had their own spin-off too, which was Wild Boys, which I fucking love, and I think Wild Boys is the reason that I love animals so much. But the other duos was kind of Dave England and Danger Aaron, just because they both kind of got picked on the most, I think, just because Dave, he was always having stomach issues, and that was kind of his main thing. And then Aaron was just always getting picked on, and he was going to do the worst stunts ever. So they kind of were always paired together. Also, one time they did a motorcycle stunt. Actually, they did multiple stunts where Dave broke Aaron's tooth, and now he permanently has a silver tooth. And I think it's actually really, really cool. Well, kind of. And there was Preston and Wee Man, and it was just kind of more of a physical comedy bit, because Preston is kind of this overweight guy. No hate to Preston, because I'm a fat bitch too, let me tell you that just right now. I totally get it. But, and then Wee Man has dwarfism, or a form of dwarfism, and that was just kind of the bit. It was Preston who was kind of this bigger guy, and then it was Wee Man who was way smaller than him. And I think a lot of their bits are super funny though. There's one where Preston is walking a dog, and he asks this guy can you hold my dog? And he goes in the store, and then Wee Man, dressed as Preston, in prosthetics and everything, comes out and is thanks for holding my dog, man. One of the funniest bits ever. He's thanks for holding my dog. And he keeps repeating it because the guy won't let go, because he doesn't think that it's actually, I don't know what he thinks. It's really funny. The only other one who didn't really have a dynamic duo was Johnny. And that was just kind of he didn't really need one. His dynamic duo was working with bulls, to be honest. Arguably maybe Jeff Tremaine was his foil. Johnny always pranks Jeff. If someone has to prank Jeff, then it's going to be Johnny. But also, Johnny didn't need Jeff Tremaine in his bits. I mean, I don't know who like made them, so maybe I don't know. I think Johnny didn't really need um someone to help him in his comedy. He was always just kind of like a funny guy on his own. And I'm not saying that the others needed someone to be a duo with, because they really didn't. Like, I think Wee Man is really hilarious on his own. Um, just like even his jokes are just funny. I think Chris Pontius, he used to be my favorite Jackass member. It's Bam now, but I think his one-liners are some of the best in the show. Is it wrong to be strong? Like me and my brothers used to say that all the time. And then that was intense. Really intense. Well, not really intense. Kind of intense. Or whatever he says. Like that. He's just like, he pulls off being a himbo so well. And like all of them are really funny on their own. You know, they don't really need people to be funny. Like they're getting kicked in the balls. So that's kind of like the main joke. So it's not really like you need someone else to be there to be funny or to get hurt or to jump off a roof, but it's always nice that they had, you could tell that they were friends. Like those duos were friends in real life and out of the actual show too as well. I will say it was like you could tell that they either really liked the money that they were getting or they just enjoyed working with the show, because they went through so much and it is kind of hard to like want to willingly go and do more of that. I mean, Steve-O has said before that it's like they're all attention whores. I think that's true for Steve-O. You know, and it's like I think that's like for people like Johnny Knoxville, I think he just genuinely enjoys making people laugh. You know, not so much an attention whore thing, more of like a comedian thing. Now, I'm not saying that there's never any drama between these guys, because oh my god, dude, there was kind of a lot of drama, and we'll get into it later, but it's surprising that they still like genuinely are willing to go be seen in public with each other. Just from the stuff that has happened to them. But speaking about the world's sexiest man, Johnny Knoxville, let's talk about his life. Okay, so first of all, Johnny Knoxville is not Johnny Knoxville's actual name. His real name is PJ Clapp. And he was born March 11th in Knoxville, Tennessee. Hence, when he got his stage name, Johnny Knoxville, because he likes Tennessee. It's where he's from. He has 2 older sisters and often describe his dad as to be a big personality, being horrible when he's drunk, but amazing and hilarious when he was sober. Which I think is really kind of bittersweet when you think about all the stuff that these guys later go through. Like, they probably thought the opposite of themselves. Maybe even Johnny thought the opposite of himself. Like, oh, I'm more funnier when I'm drunk. But I just know that most of these people are now sober and alive and well. His father was a car salesman and his mother was a Sunday school teacher. And after graduating high school, Johnny moved to LA to try to make it big and be a big movie star. He didn't really get any roles, just like commercials, and he had to move back home for a bit because he got poor as fuck, and he had to go back to his family, get some money working as a busboy, then move back to LA again because he still wanted to be a movie star. When he moved back to LA, he found success in being a body double in the movie Dracula. But kind of during the filming of Dracula, his then girlfriend got pregnant with his first daughter, Madison Clapp. Realizing he kind of needed to lock in after this, Johnny decided to start writing articles for Big Brother magazine, which is basically the skateboarding magazine, but skateboarding culture was kind of different back then. It was like, for example, Johnny Knoxville like never skateboarded in his life. In fact, when he would skateboard, it was funny, because like that's kind of how like him hurting himself started, because it was like he didn't know how, so it's funny, like he would fall on his ass and stuff. But Big Brother was like really raunchy for the time. Like they even had an article about how to, so it was just kind of like for kids. Like it's not like how it is now, how you could find your own like niche groups online and everything. It's like you kind of like skateboarding culture was lumped in with a lot of other things, like thrash metal and the music scene at the time, just other things like that. So this is kind of good for Johnny because it was a good gig that he, I mean, not a good gig, he wasn't really making that much money, but it was something that he didn't mind writing about, and he thought, like he enjoyed it, I guess. But it also was kind of bad because to be on the magazine and to get like a lot of press, you kind of had to do outrageous things. And like I said, this is like skateboarders doing outrageous things, so it's like um skateboarding, this doing a cool skateboarding trick, or doing this, or I skateboarded off of this, but Johnny didn't skateboard, so it's like, what can he do? And he's like, I have an idea. He decided to write an article about self-defense equipment. He's gonna go test it out on himself. And he met Jeff Tremaine, who is the director of Jackass, by the way, with Spike Jonze. But he met Jeff Tremaine there, and Jeff Tremaine was like, oh, you're gonna write about all this stuff? And Johnny was like, yeah. And Jeff Tremaine was like, why don't you film it? It's gonna be really funny. Because at the same time, the CKY tapes, we'll get into later. The CKY tapes was like a big thing, and Johnny was like, ooh, okay. So then he filmed himself, and Jeff Tremaine came and helped him. He filmed himself testing out a taser, pepper spraying himself, to which he said it was like having gonorrhea on his eyes. He also used a stun gun on himself. And finally, he was going to shoot him. He was going to test out a pistol on himself with a bulletproof vest. So, that's exactly what they did. They went out to the desert and Johnny put on the bulletproof vest, and the original cameraman did not want to do it. He like backed out last minute. He's like, I can't do it. And so I think someone else had to film from the car. I think it was Jeff. And Johnny did it. And he didn't die. I mean, he's still here, alive and well. So obviously it worked. And the video became like a massive hit. YouTube wasn't around back then, but if you can imagine like the equivalent to YouTube, kind of like passing around videotapes, yeah, it went pretty like viral, I guess, especially at the Big Brother magazine like place, the company. Everyone loved it. And they actually used the bulletproof vest tape as a pre-pilot, so like a proof of concept basically, for Jackass the TV series. Jackass the TV series started out originally kind of as just like the idea of doing dumb stuff, but pitching it to, like, pitching what they were already doing or what Big Brother was writing about, but just filming it and then just airing it on a network. So they had it as like a pre-pilot, which got approved, like a proof of concept. So then they got to go out and like write an actual pilot. So they got together the CKY group, which would really just was like Bam and Ryan, and also Brandon DiCamillo, who I'm not really gonna talk about here because I don't think he really wants to be talked about, or Brandon Novak. Anyways, I don't think they really want to be talked about. Both of them kind of are like out of the scene now, and Brandon Novak, or there's two Brandons, and I always get them confused. But one of them, like, was like on a level of drugs like Steve-O, and he recently got sober a while ago, and has like safe houses, and not safe houses, but rehabilitation centers, and he also made a documentary, and he offers up his phone number to anyone who wants to like call him who's going through issues. I don't think that he really wants to like be in the public eye for the sense of like what Jackass was. I think he just kind of wants to like focus on people who are struggling. But soon after they made the Jackass pilot, which originally Johnny said that they thought it was going to be like a talk show, but the talk show was like, you talk like Big Brother, like you interview people and see what they do, and then they do crazy shit. And Spike Jonze was like, no, don't do that, have it just be like what you guys are doing now, which is how the pilot came to be. I think it showed Steve-O, maybe Chris, CKY tapes, etc., and then they like put the pilot out there, And a lot of networks actually wanted them. And in fact, fun fact, Saturday Night Live wanted them, but they didn't want the whole Jackass crew. They just wanted Johnny Knoxville. And Johnny Knoxville was like, he's quoted as saying that he wanted to take a chance on his buddies and not himself. And he's really glad that he did that. And I'm really glad too, because Saturday Night Live fucking sucks. I really don't like Saturday Night Live. It hasn't been funny since... Shit, it wasn't funny since, like, before my mom was even born, bruh. It has not been funny for a long time. Yeah, Jackass was too great to be cornered to Saturday Night Live. They decided to go with MTV because MTV promised them the most, like, free reign. And then also, the thing about MTV is that they do, like, they do 2 spin-offs minimum if you get, like, a popular series. So they were, like, guaranteed 2 spin-offs if they did a good job on whatever, like, they were doing. Which ended up being Viva La Bam and then also Wild Boys. And then Viva La Bam had Bam's Unholy Union. So if you think about it, I think it kind of made them a bit of money. Overnight, you know, as soon as Jackass got taken up on the offer, it just was, like, popular. Boom. And Johnny is quoted as saying, like, being so poor and, like, working for pennies, nickels, dimes, and then all of a sudden being, like, loved by teenagers and hated by parents. There was, like, a governor who blamed... A kid accidentally set himself on fire, I think, and his dad blamed Jackass for some reason. And then, even though they have the warning in the beginning, and I think that some governor, like, his whole campaign plot was like, I'm going to ban Jackass because I hate Johnny Knoxville. Johnny was like, what the freaky? You know what I mean? Because it's just random. Like, imagine, like, being this nobody. I mean, not saying that Johnny Knoxville was like but because of this, Johnny's movie career kind of took off. I don't know if that was mainly because he was focusing on movies or if it was because he was kind of the leader of the group. But we started movies such as Grand Theft Parsons, Dukes of Hazzard, and The Ringer, which I love Dukes of Hazzard. Sorry to say it, guys. No, Bo, no. I thought you said go, Bo, go. Like, my family says that all the freaking time. And I like The Ringer, okay? I like The Ringer. My mom, who's, like, the woker on that kind of stuff, she likes The Winger. The Winger. She likes The Ringer, too, okay? She's the one who showed me that movie. So, I don't know. Okay, I can't say, like, if The Ringer is appropriate or not because I don't have a mental disability like that. But if one of you guys who does have a disability that was depicted in The Ringer and you say, hey, I don't like that, then just, like, tell me. Because I'll be like, actually, no, I don't like that movie. Because it's just how easy it is. You don't have to be, like, the woker on things, but you also don't have to be, like, inconsiderate of other people's opinions, especially when they're the ones being depicted in that thing. But also, aside from a multitude of things, Johnny was struggling with alcohol and drug abuse at this time. And, I mean, the whole kind of cast was, especially in Jackass 2, which we'll get to, fuck, all those bitches were on that shit, but, like, stuff seemed to be going pretty well for him. I think he got divorced in 2008-ish, like, I think he got divorced before the 3rd movie came out, but other than that, you know, it seemed to be going pretty well. Rewind, back before the movie came out, MTV, so there was 3 seasons of Jackass. Really briefly, I'll tell you. There was 3 seasons of Jackass. There's only, like, 40 episodes. So it was, like, 10 episodes in each season. Well, that's not how it works. There wasn't a lot of episodes in each season. Like, it was small. I can't do math. Sorry, guys. But what ended up happening is MTV kept getting upset and angry and wanting to, like, change stuff. And I guess, like, it was just pissing Johnny Knoxville off. And also they were cutting their pay for some reason, even though they're getting more popular. And so, unexpectedly one day, Johnny Knoxville quit the show. And it was really crazy, and nobody knew what was going on. But Because of that, Spike Jonze and Jeff Tremaine came to Johnny and suggested doing a movie. First of all, Johnny didn't know how that would work out. His thinking, he said no. Because he thought, how are you going to get actors to play us? Then also do stunts. And then also, like, what would the plot even be about? Even though that is not what they were thinking. They were thinking just a long format of stuff that they're already doing now, but making it more naughtier too. Because you could show like a bunch of shit in cinema that you can't show on like public TV. So after Johnny learned that, he was like, "Fuck yeah!" And then that's when the first Jackass movie, started to be created. So next off, we're gonna talk about the man himself, Bam Margera. Bam was kind of like Johnny in the sense that he was kind of the main guy in the CKY tapes, and Johnny was like the main guy in Jackass. They kind of like, I feel like if Johnny Knoxville didn't do like, if he did quit Jackass for good, then Bam kind of would have been the replacement. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know. He kind of was like the complete opposite of Johnny. Like, he was younger than him, I think by a couple of years, and then he also skateboarded, and that was like his main thing. That's how he started out, was skateboarding, and Johnny did not know anything about skateboarding. I mean, like I said, like, he had his own group. So it was just, like, I think he would have been okay if CKY kept going, and I think maybe he just would have been a skateboarder, and maybe that would have been better for him. I mean, just, like, from stuff that's happened. But also, I can't say that for certain because it's not my place, and he's just a random guy, I don't know him. Bam Margera was born as Brandon Margera on September 28th in Westchester, Pennsylvania. And he has one older brother, Jess Margera, who also comes into play in this. And then his dad, Phil Margera, and his mom, April Margera. He also has an uncle named Don Vito, but Don Vito sexually assaulted minors during a fan event, and I really don't like him, and so I'm not going to talk about him because I don't like him. I think he's gross. I never really found him that funny in Viva La Bam, and even other things that he was featured in. And Jackass, like, I think they cut, he used to be in some of the movies, and I think they cut him out of the final cut after that whole thing happened with the two minors. So, yeah, Don Vito's a gross guy. I don't know how to talk about him. As a child, Brandon was called Bam Bam by his grandfather because he kept running into things, and he just was like, I guess he wasn't very aware, but somehow Bam Bam turned into Bam, and it just kind of became like his little thing. His mom was a hairdresser, and it was said that like her hairdresser coworkers would just call him Bam too. And then when he got to school, he got called Bam, and then like his family just called him Bam, and so that's just like his name, Bam Margera, which I think is really cute. I think, me personally, as someone whose nickname is like how they're known and who doesn't like their real name, I totally get it. Bam's dad, Phil, by the way, who from all that I've heard is like the best dad ever, because he would take Bam out of school to go to the skate parks and practice, and he also would drive Bam to all his competitions for skateboarding growing up, and he worked tirelessly just to get Bam to do skateboarding, which I think they saw like a good outlet for him. It really warms my heart to know that Phil did so much for Bam and still has done so much for Bam, and I just wanted to mention that because I think it's really important to the story. April and Phil were super supportive of Bam's career, and in Christmas of 1998 they gifted him a video camera, and then Bam started recording his skateboarding from there, which then turned into like doing dumb stuff with his friends. In high school, he met his best friend in the whole world, who was still his best friend until the day that Ryan died, Ryan Dunn, and they just became inseparable. I think they met when they were 16, and they just became the best of buds. They were always together, and Ryan didn't know how to skateboard, but he wanted to be a part of Bam's tapes. So then Ryan decided to do a shopping cart off of the roof of a church. And that's kind of where the CKY tape started from there. But CKY comes from Jess Margera, who is Bam's older brother, it was his band, Camp Kill Yourself. I will say that I really like Jess Margera's band. CKY is actually a really good band. Like, most of my music taste comes from Jackass, like, from discovering Jackass. That's why I love the Misfits so much. But CKY didn't really get the hype up until a couple of months ago, and I just was like, oh, wait, it's actually pretty good. Bam wanted to put music over his friends doing all this dumb stuff, and then Jess was like, oh, my music. But Bam didn't want only solely CKY music, so they also added, like, Misfits and Slayer and him. The fuck, I don't know where him is from. I think it's like the Netherlands or some shit. But Bam, if you know Bam, you know that bitch is obsessed with fucking him. And I say bitch lovingly. I love you, Bam. Bam turned the whole logo for a band into his logo. And growing up, I legitimately thought it was Bam's logo. Like, Steve-O had a tattoo of the him logo on his chest, but with a wiener on it. And I thought that was Bam's logo. Anything Bam related has the him logo on it. He just, the heartogram it's called. He's kind of turned that shit into his own. And you wanna know what? I fucking respect it. Because, for example, I like Metallica, but, the Misfits, the skull logo. Freaking love that logo. If I turned that logo into my own logo, it wouldn't work out well, but Bam just pulled it off so well. It's very funny to me that he just loved that band so much and, like, was just known for wearing it and all those other things and having it tattooed on him like Steve-O, like, except not with a wiener. That it just became his thing. I think that is, like, really cool, in my opinion. I don't know if anyone else thinks that way, but I just think it's cool. But as you know, these tapes, which, by the way, back then they didn't have YouTube or anything, it kind of just, like, word of mouth, like, here's a VHS tape of the stuff I think is funny. And, the CKY tapes became popular because of that. And Bam became popular, which then notified, like, Big Brother, which then notified Johnny Knoxville and Jeff Tremaine, who then, like, showed, I think, some of the CKY stuff in the pilot for Jackass, and then I think it wasn't until a little bit into filming that Jeff Tremaine and Johnny and the rest of the crew from Jackass met Bam and the CKY crew. But also April and Phil just kind of became, like, characters in their own too. I think they did an interview one time. Or no, it was in the tribute special for Ryan Dunn, I think. I don't know, don't quote me on this, but April said that she didn't even want to be in Jackass. They just started filming her. And they're like, no, you're in the show. Like, yeah, you are. And they just, like, kept doing dumb stuff in her house. Now I'm going to talk about Ryan Dunn. I don't want to represent him in a bad way. I'm going to try to represent him in a very truthful way, but also in a very good way. He was really big and important in Bam's life and the creation of Jackass and CKY, and I think he left a good impact in the long run, I will say. Ryan Dunn was born on June 11th in Ohio, but moved around a lot during his childhood. He had 2 older siblings, but was nicknamed Cryin' Ryan as a kid because his siblings said that his mom spoiled him, but his parents go on to say that he always wanted to make people laugh. He would always just tell funny stories. He would always try to make you laugh, even as a little kid. Like, he would just make up outrageous stuff to say to hope that you laugh about it and hope that you get a little bit of amusement out of it. When he was 16, his parents moved to Westchester, Pennsylvania, where he met Bam in high school, and they easily became best friends. And then Ryan would help create the CKY tapes, and him and Bam also had a little high school stunt of being in this band called Soul Roach. They also had another band called Narkill, which I can't find much about. That didn't really go anywhere. I think maybe they just made a band because Jess Margera had a band, and maybe they just wanted to be like Jess Margera. But another big thing about Ryan is he had a fear of water, and he did not like water. To the fact where he didn't shower that much. Preston Lacey is the one who says this the most, that Ryan did not shower. That I think so there was an MTV special tribute when Ryan Dunn died, and I think I've seen it like 5 times at this point. And And Preston Lacey said that Ryan would still be in the clothes that they would go out at night, but he would still be in his clothes from shooting that day, and that he was literally in his clothes. They made him go jump in a sewer, like a sewage plant, treatment plant, which is basically just full of poopy and pee pee. And he still had his clothes on from that day, and he never changed. He never took a shower or anything. But when they would go out to the bars, women would be like, "Oh, I love your hair. Like your hair is so luscious," because he did have really good hair. But they'd be like, "What's your hair like routine?" His hair routine was just not fucking showering, which I think is really gross. But even then, and the crew would even give Ryan like water stunts in hope that maybe it would be like a little bath to him. But even then, like he was known as Random Hero because he, like, if no one wanted to do a stunt, he would be the one to step up and be the random hero, you know. So Random Hero is like a really good was like a nickname for Ryan, like an in joke nickname because they never really say it in the show, like the shows or the movies. They only really say it in the point fives. Um, but I'm not gonna go over the point fives because they're just kind of behind the scenes about the movies and just uncut stuff that didn't happen in the movies. Which I think is really, I think you guys should just go watch it on your own. Like, you can go buy these all on YouTube. I bought 1 through 3 on YouTube, and I watch them like every single day. So, but Ryan would become a really important member, especially when the first movie was being made, because, well, I'll talk about it later. Okay, now we're gonna get into Steve-O. First of all, I just want to say that I am aware about the comments that Steve-O has made on his podcast about ICE and immigrants, and I think that they were trying to be an ill-timed joke, and that is no way me supporting Steve-O for saying this, though. In fact, I think it's really gross, and I don't think he should have said that at all. I think they were distasteful. I hope that he apologizes for them. I hope that he amends his ways, but knowing Steve-O, he probably won't. And all that to say, fuck ICE, and I will continue talking about Steve-O, but I just want to let you guys know. Also, if you didn't know, I'll play the clip here. Um, yeah, it's not very good. I hope that he does apologize. But now let's continue talking about Steve-O and his biography. So first of all, Steve-O was born as Stephen Glover, and he was born in the UK on June 13th. Side note, so much of these guys are born in June, which is crazy to me because I was also born in June. My birthday's June 19th, and I think it's funny that most of them are Geminis. You know, they kind of have that personality. So Steve-O had one older sister, and his mother was Canadian while his dad was like American. And when Steven was 6 months old, his family moved to Brazil after his father got into a deal with Pepsi Cola. So Steve was kind of a nepo baby. Well, he's a nepo baby in the fact that his family was rich but not like famous. Like his dad had quite a bit of money. Steve-O often reflects on his family, saying that he didn't get a lot of attention at home from his dad, and his mom got really very, very sick and passed away um, when he was growing up as well. And he reflects his mom's death by saying it just was like, it made him kind of like used to death now, but it just was very traumatizing because his mom was like slowly dying for the end part of the 90s, and it was really hard on him, and my heart does go out to him for that. His family moved countries like so much growing up, to the point where he moved back to the US when he was 4, then back to London when he was 9 years old, and then back to Canada when he was 12. But later that same year that they moved to Canada, they moved right back to London. And I think that really had to like kind of mess with him. I mean, moving back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, you know. But this kind of caused Steve-O to turn to drugs pretty quickly. He said he was doing LSD. He started doing LSD and weed when he was 16 years old, and that he barely graduated high school because of that, along with drinking. But when he graduated high school, he decided he wanted to go to Florida and go to college in Miami State, which I don't think he wanted to go to college. I think he just wanted to party, in my opinion. But he ended up going to Miami State. His dad paid for it, and he was kind of like a little attention whore, and that's kind of just like what his exact words. To be honest, he was always trying to do stunts to impress people, and that's when he got. I think he got the nickname Steve-O later on, but he actually fell from the balcony of like this hotel that they were partying at one day, and he barely survived, and he broke like his cheekbone, and I think he broke his teeth, and he had a really bad concussion. Miraculously, he survived, but he decided he didn't want to go to college anymore. He wanted to go to Clown College, which was also still in Miami, but or Florida, somewhere in Florida. I've never been, but he's quoted as saying that Clown College was harder than actual college, but there he graduated from Clown College, and then he started like recording himself doing dumb stuff. Like a lot of how these people start out, they just record themselves doing dumb stuff, and he got noticed by Jeff Tremaine in Big Brother magazine. So then, they did like one little thing with him, and Jackass didn't really like him that much. Like the crew, Johnny and Jeff didn't really like him, but Steven would not fucking give up, and he ended up like chasing after the Jackass guys all over town, tried to show off to them while they're like trying to get them to film him. And Johnny Knoxville told this story, and basically Johnny tricked Steve-O into going and doing something to where Johnny and his crew can go run away, and Steve-O found them like halfway across town. Like he tracked those motherfuckers down, and he just kept pushing and pushing, and so finally they just were like, fine, okay, you can join us. And I think the first stunt that Steve-O did for the camera was the fishbowl stunt, in which he swallowed a fish whole and then puked it back out into a fishbowl. And that was one of my first like instances of seeing Steve-O ever in my life. It was fucking disgusting. Like, I don't know what else to say. But Johnny, like, says that Steve-O at the time was just wildly crazy, to the point where Johnny would slip him Xanax, try to slip him Adderall, which just made Steve-O worse. Which also, by the way, this is totally like super bad. Please don't slip your friend Xanax or Adderall. But he would slip Steve-O Xanax, like blatantly put it in his food while Steve-O was eating it, or he would step on Steve-O's foot, and then wait for Steve-O to like yell like in pain, like ah, and then he would pop Xanax in his mouth. So, if that just goes to show you that Steve-O was just fucking wild and crazy back then, I don't know what's going to show you that, except for that. Let's talk about Wee Man. Wee Man was born as Jason Acuna on May 16th in Italy, actually. And he was born in Italy because his dad was on deployment. His dad was in the military. And I think his dad is Mexican and his mom is German, or it's the other way around. I just know that one of his parents is Mexican, one of his parents are German. I think Wee Man moved when he was still like a baby, but his family moved to California. And the thing about Wee Man is he was born with dwarfism. I will never make fun of a person because of their disability. But the thing about Wee Man is he kind of used his disability as a way to stand out against the crowd, because he grew up skateboarding, and he kind of used his disability as a way to stand out and to make people laugh, like dressing up as like a Oompa Loompa in some of his skateboarding stunts. I think him using comedy for like a disability that he had is actually really smart, and I look up to him a lot for that. I actually really like Wee Man. He also has like a food chain. He like owns half the food chain called Chronic Tacos, and if I'm not mistaken, he was in Boise, Idaho the other day, which I'm from Idaho too. He got popular for doing like his silly little stunts, and then he became a subscription manager at Big Brother, and he worked for Big Brother, and they did some articles about him. And that's when he met Johnny Knoxville and Jeff Tremaine and Spike Jonze and Preston Lacey. Well, he didn't meet Preston Lacey till later, but it's kind of where his story comes up at. But him and Preston actually developed a really good relationship from the show. And in recent interviews, they stated that they have never fought in the entire 23 years of their friendship, which I think is beautiful. But speaking of which, let's talk about Preston. Which Preston Lacey was not a skateboarder. He didn't do any crazy stunts. He wasn't a crazy stand-up comedian guy. He just was a construction worker from Missouri, and he wanted to go be a writer in Hollywood. But Preston was born in Missouri on August 14th, and there isn't much known about his early life. Like I said, there's not much could be known about these people's early life starting from here. He worked as a construction worker, and then he eventually moved to California because he wanted to be a writer, which he didn't end up being a writer right away. I think he acted in a few commercials, one of which being the Super Bowl, in the 90s, some year. And then he also he worked for this clothing company that Johnny Knoxville's first wife worked for as well. I think it was a supplier. And then Johnny Knoxville's first wife introduced Preston to Johnny, who then Preston was like, oh hey, I like what you guys do, here's some ideas for skits or stunts that you could do. And then Johnny Knoxville was like, why don't you just come do them with us? And Preston was like, okay. So that's how that started out. A running gag in early interviews is that the whole crew would just say that Preston wrote everything, every single skit, anything, which of course is not true. But I think that's really cute, and I think that's a fun little inside gag, Random Hero. I think it's cute. Next, we're gonna talk about one of my favorite Jackass members, Chris Pontius. Chris Pontius was born in California on June 16th, and again, not much about his early life. I don't know much about his relatives or anything, but I do know that he started skateboarding probably at a young age, and then he started working for Big Brother. And he was recruited for Jackass, and the first time he met Johnny Knoxville was in London, and he went out to go buy a thong to do that's when his famous Party Boy skit was created. And Party Boy is this persona where Chris strips down just to a thong, and he dances to this song. I don't know if I'm allowed to play it, but it's like but he just strips and dances to that song in public. And the night that skit was conceived, he bought a thong, and this is the first time I ever met Johnny Knoxville, by the way. Never met Johnny Knoxville in his entire life. Jeff is he's in the shower right now. Johnny's in the shower, and Chris is word. So he gets in his thong, and he jumps in the shower with Johnny Knoxville, and he dances with him like male stripper kind of vibes. I've seen the footage. It's hilarious. Johnny's naked, and they're filming, and Chris is just having the time of his life, and I think that is really funny. And then it's hilarious. I think the Party Boy persona will live on, and I love Party Boy. He's amazing. I used to have a big crush, and I still do, on Chris Pontius, and he has a wife and kid now. But it's that Hinder song. Honey, why you calling me so late? It's kinda hard to talk right now. On my wedding day, if I ever get married, I will call Chris Pontius and I'll be like, well, my girl's in the next room. Sometimes I wish it was you. And I will say that. And I doubt he will ever see this, but if he does, it's really good to hear your voice say my name. Sounds so sweet. Coming from the lips of an angel. Anyway, sorry. That was went on way too long. Another important Jackass member that we'll talk about today is Dave England, also known as David England. That was his full name, and he was born on December 30th. And there isn't much known about his early childhood days, but I do know that he started snowboarding and kind of became known for snowboarding, and he worked at the sister magazine to Big Brother, which was about snowboarding was called Blunt. Pun intended, I guess. But that's where Dave England worked at. And So he's just skateboarding. He does snowboarding, which I think is really cool. A funny story is Dave England. The only thing I could really find on him before he started Jackass was that in New Zealand, in a snowboarding accident, he like herniated one of his family jewels, the nut, not the nuts, just one nut, and he ended up losing it. So he only has one nut. He's a one nutter. He's a monotesticle. He's a one monotesticle. One monotesticle means the same thing. Uno testicle. Uno monotesticle. Another thing about Dave England is I don't know. I can't find anything about this. I don't know if he has some kind of stomach issues or if he like is lactose intolerant or if he has Crohn's disease or what. But he just is always shitting his pants. Any single skit you could think of that has to do with shit, he's shitting himself. Like, and I don't even know what it is. I think it's just maybe just like a weak tummy, like me too, girl. But I have I'm lactose intolerant, so I really don't know what it is. And he has even gone on stating that he just gets paid to poop. He's like shit himself for like almost every Jackass movie. Jackass 1, he shit himself in the car, accidentally. Jackass 2, he accidentally shit himself. Jackass 3, he shit himself on camera, but that was like for a bit. Jackass Forever, I don't think he had any shit in it. And then Jackass Best and Last showed him shitting himself. So I could only assume it's been getting worse as he gets older. Because, like, I don't think old people have any control of that stuff. I think it's just loose. How tight are we? Loose. Poop just falls out. He also has an evil personality, like alter ego, called Darth. And I don't really know much about Darth. I just know that I guess it's like an evil persona that Dave England has when he drinks. Another person that we'll talk about, the last Jackass stunt member that we'll talk about in depth, is Danger Aaron, also known as Aaron McGehee. And he was born in Portland, Oregon, so he's the woker. No, I'm joking, he's really not. But he was born in Portland, Oregon on November 29th. And he actually was really well known for skateboarding at 12 years old. After breaking, he's broken his shoulder, his neck, and his knee. Before he even got famous for Jackass, like that was just from skateboarding. And then branching off from skateboarding, he tried to do snowboarding. But I believe is how he met Dave England, because they used to be friends before the show, if I'm not mistaken. Because they're like always together. I don't know if it's like something yaoi going on or what, but so yeah, and then he was like recruited by Big Brother while he was working in a skate shop in Portland, Oregon, and then got recruited for Jackass. And during the filming of Jackass, the series, he did a meter fairy joke, like a skit, where he was a meter fairy. It was like the Tooth Fairy, but he did like something with the meters. I don't even know, like parking meters. And he's never lived this down once in his entire life. I don't know if it's because of this skit, or I don't know if they just don't fucking like Danger Aaron, but Danger Aaron gets picked on all the time. Legitimately. All the fucking time. Danger Aaron's like the butt of every joke. And he said he was in a Steve-O podcast, one of the podcast episodes, and he talked about it, and he legitimately like was on the verge of tears because they're his friends, of course, but it gets to a point where they've just been bullying this man for like 20 years. But Danger Aaron arguably did like the most dangerous shit, but he has the most injuries up next to like Johnny Knoxville, and Danger Aaron has said that like they pick on him because someone has to get picked on, and like he doesn't really do anything to combat it, and they like his reactions, but it's just kind of sad. But anyways, let's talk about the movies. So first of all, Jackass the movie came out on October 25th, 2002. It made $72 million worldwide, which is like super amount of money now if you think about like inflation and shit. But it really changed cinemas for good, being the most gross and like worst things to ever be shown on cinema, including Danger Aaron pissing in snow and eating it in the piss snow cone. And then also Ryan Dunn sticking a toy car up his ass, then getting it X-rayed. And that one is probably one of my favorite ones ever. It's like everyone's favorite one. Um, Steve was actually supposed to do that one, but his dad said that he would disown him, so he didn't do that one. And I think honestly, Steve it was just him chickening out. Also, speaking of Steve he also started Wasabi in that one too. But critics hated this film, and I get why, because it was just like grown men like making piss and shit and fart jokes, but it it's just kind of funny. Like, they were like, this is so lowbrow. It's like, have you not seen the TV show? Like, what did you think it was gonna be? Like, they'll hold hands and sing Kumbaya. I'll talk more about, like, my personal connection to Jackass later, but I do know that my uncles and my dad love the Jackass movies, and my mom also loved Jackass too. I just think it's funny, like, I'm always so jealous of my parents. They got to live out the fucking teen years that I wanted. I wanted to go see My Chemical Romance in Warped Tour. My mom did that, by the way, guys. I'm so fucking jealous of her. Kids started, like, getting hurt left and right and trying to do their own stunts, even though at least was, like, the warning in the whole, like, show and everything. But something good to know at this time is that the crew was kind of going wild. To my knowledge, it was the first time the whole cast got together, like, everyone in the same room. And there was lots of parties, lots of almost getting kicked out of hotels. There was, like, stuff that was cut out because it was too bad, and stuff that was like the butt chug. Steve does later, but all around, it just was kind of really wild for them. I mean, they're just barely getting to stardom, and they had never really been famous before ever. I mean, to this extent, and to getting all this, like, this fame and fortune, it just probably was, like, crazy to them. So before the second movie came out, there was Viva La Bam started production, and then also Wild Boy started production. And this is when Johnny was focusing on his movie career. So this is when, like, The Ringer was being made, I think, and Grand Theft Parsons. I don't know when that came out. And then also Dukes of Hazzard. So, I mean, not all at the same time. Like, it was in the span of this whole decade. But that's, like, just, like, when Johnny was actively going into the movies, while everyone else was kind of just doing their own thing. So first of all, let's talk about Jackass 2. Jackass 2 is probably the best film out of, what is it, like a orgy? An orgy? Like, out of the four films, probably the best. And it sucks to know that this one had the most substance abuse and dark memories attached to the for the cast in this movie, because this movie is fucking amazing, and I watch it, like, all the time. Jackass 2 came out in 2006 on September 22nd, which means Jackass 2 is 20 years old. The opening shot is probably the most iconic in the whole series. It's the whole cast running away from bulls, and they all do, like, stunts to get away from them. There's also, like, a mini bull that's running after Wee Man, which I think is kind of funny. Some of the best stunts include Steve-O pierces his cheek by putting, like, a big hook through it, and then Chris Pontius casts him out to sea, and then he swims with sharks, and he almost gets bitten by a shark. And I think that's one of the best ones. Bam gets branded on his ass by Ryan, and it turns out really horribly. And they go and terrorize Bam's parents. I think it's really funny. And they also do the ending musical number, which is probably one of my favorite, just like my favorite things out of the whole series. But it was really, really troubled. Johnny got crushed by this, like, falling wall that he was trying to do like a trick out of, but he thought it wasn't gonna fall because, like, they cut before it fell, and he was like, okay, so he's gonna go walk off from his marker, and it fell on him, and it was like this big, like, 200-ton steel wall, and it crushed his body but not his head, and I think he was fine. But if it crushed his head, he would have died. And his daughter Madison was on set during that, so it's kind of scary. And then Preston and Wee Man were gonna go down this slide that's, like, has a bunch of lube on it, and they were gonna knock into these, like, trash cans, but I don't think everyone else but Jeff Tremaine kind of realized how slippery the actual lube was, and they both, because they're on top of each other, they both went past the trash cans, and they hit the whole like crew. And I think Dave England got it on camera on his own like little like Razor video phone. I don't know. So that was also really bad. They're fine. And then Bam and Ryan do this bit where they get dragged out by horses, and Ryan actually fell really, really hard on his shoulder, which was kind of like the beginning of the end for Ryan, because his shoulder, I don't remember exactly what happened to it, but it was just like fucked up really bad. And when he like was getting like his shoulder fixed up, they also found out he had Lyme disease, and it caused Ryan to go through a really bad depression, in which he stopped talking to like everyone but Bam, and he became a really bad alcoholic. Which, not saying he wasn't already before, but this is when his alcoholism got really out of hand. There's a terror taxi, which is just basically Danger Aaron. They had him do brown face and pretend to look like a Middle Eastern man, he then like did like racist, like acting out like he was a terrorist in this taxi. But the whole thing was Aaron didn't realize it was all a prank on him. So he's thinking he's doing a prank when really the whole prank is on him. And the driver of the taxi, who was actually an actor, like pretended to freak out about it and pretended to kill Jeff Tremaine and also kidnap Danger Aaron. And when it was revealed that it was a joke, they also showed Danger Aaron that his fake beard that he had on was actually all their pubes. And actually one of them had crabs, so he got crabs on his face. And then he puked everywhere. I think it's really crazy because, like, I get Danger Aaron could have said no to this, but it just really aged really poorly. I don't really have much to say about that at all. I don't really want to say anything at all about it. It's a really bad stunt. And I don't really think it's funny, to be honest. But behind the scenes, all of the cast members are really struggling with their own personal, like, just demons, I guess is the best way I could say it. Johnny Knoxville became addicted to filming, and he would just film nonstop, like 24/7, to the point where they had to ask him to stop filming. And I think Jeff Tremaine like told him like you need to stop filming, and he cried. Like Johnny Knoxville like got emotional, he said, because there just wasn't anything else to do. And his drug abuse was also really bad, and his alcoholism. Steve-O's was fucking bad. I don't even know what to say. Ryan Dunn, after the ending skit, he just went into a full-blown depression and he became a really bad alcoholic. Bam was also doing drugs. I think him and Steve-O got arrested. Just Steve-O got arrested because him and Bam were doing like stand-up, like a stunt tour or whatever, and Steve-O got arrested for having drugs. At this time, Steve-O also started filming himself just all the time. Kind of like Johnny, but in the bad way, because he also was filming himself doing drugs. And he had like a war with his neighbor, which was really bad. And he like would just like post this. I think he did so much whippets one time that he was hallucinating like his family being there or something. He just recorded this whole thing. And that's kind of when, and before this, Johnny Knoxville tried to get Steve-O help, and Steve-O just wouldn't go get help. And after the whippet hallucination, he finally, and also after intervention with the Jackass crew and Steve-O, he went to rehab, and he actually has been sober since then. He's been sober for almost 20 years. It'll be 20 years in 2028. And that's actually really, really good. You know, that's surprising. Most addicts die from their addiction and they always go back to it. So to be sober is like a really rare chance, and I think it's very good for Steve-O to be sober, regardless of his personality. But eventually, when Steve-O got better and Ryan got better, I think his Lyme disease was getting on the up and up. Johnny got better. They all were... Everyone who was dealing with their own personal demons and who was open up about it, they were getting better. And so they decided to film Jackass 3D. Jackass 3D came out October 15th in 2010 using 3D effects like in the best possible way. So they kind of used 3D stunts in a really funny way, showing poop and fart and what's Gru say? Poop and fart and piss and shit up close and personal in 3D, and it's kind of gross. I mean, I watched it on my TV, which doesn't have the 3D effect on it, but even then, I still think it's kind of gross. Like it shows not Danger Aaron. Dave England puts his little butt cheeks and just like fucking shits himself. Anyways, my favorite stunts from this movie is the Invisible Man, where Johnny like got painted to look like blended in with this background, and then a bull came out and knocked his ass out. And I always love the bull stunts. The bull stunts are my favorite, like any of them. But another good stunt would be, I like the part where they pulled Danger Aaron's tooth out with Bam's Lambo. But it does hurt my heart a little bit knowing that Danger Aaron, from doing that stunt, his tooth got pulled out with like such visceral strength and reaction that it cracked it cracked his skull up to his eyeball, and he still like lives with that. And whenever I watch that stunt, it really hurts because he's like screaming in pain, and everyone's like, "Oh, Danger Aaron's such like a pussy. You just got your tooth pulled. It's fine, whatever." And I'm always like, when they're mean to Danger Aaron on Jackass. Another one of my favorite stunts is the little person bar fight. I don't know if little person's like a bad thing to say, but I think I'm sure that's what this stunt is called. Where Wee Man, who has dwarfism, and then another actor who also has dwarfism, they pretend to be out on a date, and then another actor who also has dwarfism, mind you, this is like a normal ass bar, comes in and pretends to be the girl's boyfriend, and then Wee Man and this boy gets enough to a fight, and then little man police show up, and then emergency responders show up who are also all have dwarfism, and it's hilarious and I love it so much. I think it's one of my favorites. They showed that clip in Jackass Best and Last, and I literally was like, I thought I was gonna piss myself from laughing, because I've never seen that in theaters, and I literally was just dying. It was like it's one of the best stunts of all time, to be honest. There also was supposed to be a horse, like a miniature horse that a miniature police officer comes riding in on, but the miniature horse was too spooked to go into the bar, but he's outside, and I think that would have made that like fun 1 million fucking times more funny. To talk about Jackass 3D, I have to talk about Ryan Dunn and how it was his last movie. And I've kind of mentioned Ryan's death in this whole video, but I will talk about it and I will explain it because I'm sure everyone knows about it. If you know Jackass, you kind of know. But I think a lot of people forget about the other passenger, or his passenger who died that night as well, Zachary Hartwell. And I think a lot of people either remember Dunn in a really bad way because of that, or they don't remember Zachary at all. And I want to say right now, before I start talking about it, that I think drunk driving is terrible. I think drunk driving is the worst possible thing that a person can do. But I also think that no one deserves to die in that way. Regardless if both of them were drunk, or regardless if Ryan, he's a celebrity, he could have called someone to come pick him up. And it really affects me because I'm from a rural area, and a lot of people I know drive drunk, and I will not be very pleased to admit that I've even driven under the influence before. And I can tell you right now that it is never worth it. Always call someone, regardless of if you think you're going to be in trouble, you're going to be in trouble either way. It's either you call your parents or a family member or someone that you know, and you get in trouble that way, or they get a phone call that you're dead somewhere. Only after 6 months after Jackass 3D was released, on June 20th at 3:30 in the morning in 2011, Ryan Dunn was killed in a fiery car crash after I think it was a Pontiac car, was going 130 miles per hour down a road, which ended up going off an embankment and then catching on fire. And poor Ryan and Zachary were only identified because of their tattoos. I think also earlier that night, Ryan had posted a picture of him and Zachary at the bar, or at a bar. And unfortunately, a lot of the crew only found out, including Steve-O, through TMZ, because TMZ contacted them asking for statements. They're all like in different places, and that's how they found out that one of their best friends had died. Fortunately for Bam, Ryan's best friend, he found out, he got a phone call just through probably through the police or Ryan's parents. And the way that it has affected Bam is probably something that he can never recover from. Ryan and Zachary were both seen as really good people. Zachary was a veteran, and he also recently got married to his wife. And I mean, just for both of them, like Ryan had just really gotten over his Lyme disease, and he was really battling with alcoholism. But I think that people don't deserve to succumb to their issues. I mean, look at Steve-O, look at Bam right now. They both have been sober. Steve-O for like 20 years. Brian DiCamillo, he's sober now too, and I think that's just how people's stories should end, and it is a really unfortunate fact that they don't always end that way. And they sometimes end up like Ryan. Ryan's death was really, really hard on everyone. I mean, his family, for Jackass, his Jackass family. I mean, for Bam and his family. They did a special memorial MTV show, which I've seen a couple of times, and it's a really, really good show. I think it's just like a hour long special. It's up on YouTube if you want to watch it, and I think it goes over everything very well, and just the kind of person that Ryan was in the eyes of the crew and in the eyes of the public. And there is also an interview out there that Fox News did, where they interviewed Bam a couple of days after the crash, right after Bam went to the crash site, and it is honestly a really, really hard thing to watch. I would not suggest watching it if you are sensitive like me, because I cried when I first saw it, and I guarantee that you would probably cry too. He just is so broken down, and it's really gross. I don't know why they filming him. I don't know why they interviewed him. It's a lot. An important thing to know too is a lot of Jackass fans, I say quote unquote, were stealing stuff from the crash site or stealing Ryan's things to sell on eBay, and the news also goes over that, which I think if you were to watch that, just watch that for that. But it is really, really gross, and if you're one of those people, you're going to hell. I don't even know what to tell you. That is the most terrible thing I could ever think of. First of all, it's a crime scene. Second of all, it's a person who died. Not to mention, it's two people who died, and one of them, wasn't even a celebrity, so it's not like he was asking for his attention. But back to Bam, he stated in that interview that he will never ever be the same. And still to this day, I don't think he has ever recovered. And I think that you can't recover from that. I can't imagine losing my best friend, who was my best friend for as long as they were together, and just being expected to forget about it. In a recent interview, he talks about Ryan like quite openly, and he seems to be very fond of him and the memories that they had together, and it really warmed my heart to know that he is in a space where he can talk about Ryan, openly and kindly and without breaking down crying, because I would. But it means a lot to me, and I'm very happy to know that Bam is doing okay now. But unfortunately, when this happened, which was in 2011, Bam never really was the same, and he ended up getting more into alcohol and more into drugs, and he kind of just was on like a 10-year long bender. Like really, that's the only way I can describe it myself. And I know that he was connecting with Steve-O a lot and trying to get better, and it just wasn't working. And unfortunately, when the next movie was being made, Jackass Forever, he could not get better enough for it. But we'll talk about that when I talk about Jackass Forever, which is now. Now, to go back into a more personal story and the entire reason why I'm making this video, when Jackass Forever came out, which was 2022, was when I first got into it. I could that's all I can really say. Into it. So Jackass Forever really changed my love for the series. I mean, it made me love the series, really. And you might be talking to yourself and being like, Jesse, why are you making a video now? Like, you could have made a video when you first started liking it, back in the day. And to that I say, well, first of all, I was 14 years old. But second of all, I think that the new movie that was just released shouldn't have been made. Sorry guys, I don't think it should have been made. I think Jackass Forever would have been the best ending to it. And that's kind of my opinion. But to talk about Jackass Forever, it was released in 2022 on February 4th, which was actually the first Jackass film I had ever seen in theaters. And let me tell you a little story. So first of all, I was 14 years old, and it was my freshman year of high school. And I remember my dad always liked Jackass. My uncles and my dad liked Jackass. And I was really excited to be old enough to go see it. I was not old enough to go see it, to be honest. It was a rated R movie, and you had to be over 18. But my local movie theater didn't check our ages, even though we were very, very clearly under 18. I brought 12 of my friends. But I remember it was my first date with my first ever boyfriend, because I'd only had a girlfriend up to that point. And I was really, really excited, and my parents and my brothers went to a party that night. I was living with my dad at this time, and my first ever boyfriend came to pick me up. He was a little bit older than me, in his truck, and he came into our house, and I hugged him, which was scandalous for 14 years old. And I told my friends about it when I got there, and we went to go see Jackass Forever. And I thought it started way earlier than it actually was. So we were at the theaters for 30 minutes. Just sitting there, and we were the first ones in line. And it was super fun. I remember, I said, I invited 12 other people just because I wanted my whole friends to fucking see it. I was like, you guys have to see this fucking movie, dude. And one of my friends was I don't know how to explain her, but she was covering her eyes the whole time, and she did not like it, but I think everyone else really, really enjoyed it. We were we were rolling around in our seats laughing so hard, and I remember vividly, I remember looking over and seeing everyone's reactions, because I was on the very end, and then it was that guy that I was on the first date with, and then everyone else, and I just loved seeing the reactions. It made me genuinely so happy. And I think that is one of the I've never really consistently stayed friends with a lot of people ever, but I think that was one of the best moments I ever had in my life with those group of people. And in my teenage years too. I mean, I'm still 19, but whatever. And then to add on to that, it just became a big part of my personality. I just loved it. I watched all the other movies from that. My dad had them all on DVD, I believe. And then he also had Steve-O, Guilty as Charged, which I didn't really like. But I remember the same like month. So at my dad's house we had cable TV, and I would watch MTV a lot. Like that was kind of my thing. And even at my grandma's house, same like side of the family, she didn't have any like we didn't have any like Netflix or whatever over there. We just had cable TV. So MTV was like my main thing. And for the Jackass Forever movie coming out, they were doing like a Jackass movie marathon, and I was babysitting my two younger brothers, and my parents were out doing something. My stepmom and my dad. And I remember I turned on the Jackass movie marathon because I saw it was on. I was like, oh, we need to watch this so bad. And it was just really funny to show my brothers it. I really shouldn't have shown them. The youngest was like 3 years old. And it just was super funny, and we kept like quoting it to each other the first movie. And the second movie started, and then my parents came home. But instead of like getting mad at me, they like joined in and started watching it with us. And we watched, it was all up until the third movie, so it wasn't like a big binge watch. But it was just genuinely like, watching those movies with people is some of the best memories I have with my family and with my friends and that period of my life. And Jackass Forever, I think, means so much to me because of that reason. I remember me and my brothers after that would always be like, is it wrong to be strong? And then do something. Like, it just was like, it was just, you know, it just was special to us. And it warms my heart to know that it was also special to my dad and my uncles. I went to my grandma's house the other day and I found like VHS tapes of my dad's, and I was like, they were like him and my uncles doing Jackass type stunts. Like they tied my dad to a rope and put him out on the frozen river that we live next to. And just stupid stuff like that when he was 14, you know, when he was the age that I was when I liked Jackass too. I still do. Watching those movies with my stepmom and my dad, my brothers, were so comforting to me because it was like there was no fighting, there was no yelling, you know, there was no getting in trouble, there wasn't, you know, my stepmom being super mean to me. It just was like we were all sitting there and enjoying these movies and enjoying these people hurting each other. And my stepmom and my dad were talking about like, you know, they remember seeing this and blah 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 blah, and my stepdad talking about it. And I just think that that's why people love these movies, is it means something to people. You know, it means something to me. Talk about the actual movie, Jackass Forever. I think it was supposed to be the last one. It was supposed to have Bam, actually. But unfortunately, Bam was still kind of on his little bender at this time. And when he signed the contract, in the contract, it said that he could not, like, show up to set on any substances or anything, or drunk. And they also had to take drug tests. Well, he failed those drug tests and showed up set on substances. I think they only filmed one stunt with him. And, you know, he got fired, and then he sued the show. I think they settled it out of court because I don't know who won or who didn't win. But they also added a new cast of people, which I don't know if that was because of Bam or if it was just because they're old now. So they added Jasper Dolphin, who's from the Loiter Squad, Rachel Wolfson, Poopies, Jackass, and Eric Manaka. And in this movie, they actually did do a bunch of shit with the new people. I think Rachel did like 2 or 3 stunts, which I remember her biggest one being the scorpion lip filler one, which was, she got like venom poisoning or some shit from that, which I think is like props to you, girl. They had Zach like fall on cactuses. I think Eric Manaka and Jasper did the tap dance, and Tyler the Creator was there too. They always do like celebrity cameos, and Tyler the Creator was like the best cameo. I think MGK was in that movie too, and I hated it. I think me and my friends booed the screen when he came on. But overall, it just was like, it was a really good movie, and Danger fucking Aaron carried that whole film on his back. He did a stunt. He did the cup test, and he like I think you broke one of his ball sacks or something like that, like his testicle. And then he also did something with he almost got attacked by a bear because he got like strapped to a bear, and they just like picked on him the whole film, but he really carried that shit, dude. Like I think he like his stuff was the most memorable, and I really really love Jackass Forever. And to be honest, I think it should have ended there. But to go back to Bam, he kind of was like going through a really hard time at this point, and he was like going on Instagram Reels and like saying really stupid things and just having a mental breakdown. And he was actually recorded having a lot of meltdowns and breakdowns in public, and he got 5150 custody finally. And he got put into like different rehab centers and was like tossed around a lot. And he lost custody of his son. But I think you are happy to know that Bam is now doing better. Just recently better. Enough to where he, I think, just recently saw his nephew or niece or something. I saw like his sister-in-law posted about that. And he also has been seeing his son again, and his parents are back in the spotlight, and I'm really happy for Bam, and I'm glad that he got out of it, because I, of all people, understand that. Now, also in Jackass Forever, and tied to Jackass Best and Last, which is why I think they made this movie, is because Johnny, in Jackass Forever, did a stunt with a bull that gave him such a bad concussion that he was, like, hospitalized, and the doctor was like, if you ever do that again, you're gonna die. So he could not film with, like, he couldn't really do anything like that anymore. Which is why I think it really shouldn't have continued. Like, I get that other people can do other things, but in Best and Last, which came out this year in 26th of June, it wasn't really that good. And it felt like just because Johnny wasn't doing anything, that they felt like no one else could do anything. It was the kind of like the vibe. It just was very, very odd. And Johnny has just like never really been the same since then. Like, he kind of talks slower, and he doesn't seem to remember like very, very good. And he has like a weird cadence to his voice, which I think is connected to the concussion. And overall, it just seems like his age and his line of work has really been getting to him, and it just makes me really sad. So that's why I decided to make this final movie. But in my opinion, this final movie is not really like the best or the last. It's Jackass, a compilation film with 2 new things, and I don't remember what those 2 new things are. I think Poopy's got lip filler, which I didn't really get, because it was like you already did a lip filler bit in the last one, but whatever. And then they showed the stunts that got cut with Bam from Jackass Forever, but they didn't just show his parts. They showed like the whole thing all over again, which the stunt that they showed is like shit. It's like 10 minutes long. And they did fuck, I can't even remember, dude. Like they just showed like everything like old, which I get, the best and the last, but it's like you could have done so much more stuff, and they didn't really do any of that stuff. But it was my sister's 14th birthday on the 26th, so because when I was 14 I went and watched Jackass, I took her to go see Jackass, and it was a really good film for her because she had never seen Jackass before. I don't think she was allowed to watch it every time I was watching it at my mom's house, but it was good for her because she, like, it was a compilation, so it was like showing her what Jackass really was. But for like seasoned veterans, fans in the audience like me, and then my stepdad and my mom, it was like there wasn't much to go see it for. Like, I can just go watch all 4 Jackass movies and get the whole total package. Like, there's really nothing that I brought to the table. They talked a little bit about Ryan, which I think if they talked more about Ryan, it would have been very nice. And not to, like, Eric Wanaka wasn't even in it. Correct me if I'm wrong. I didn't like look up Wikipedia for this, but Eric Wanaka is not even in it. And Eric Manaka, like he's British. He was really fucking funny in the last one. Like I just thought his British accent was funny. Maybe that's because I'm like from rural Idaho, you know. I ain't got shit. I like people have an accent, and I'm always like, "Where you from? You ain't from around here, are you?" And so I just liked him a lot, and it was really sad to know that like he didn't, like he wasn't even there. I don't think even Rachel Wilson talked, and that's sad too because I think she's funny, and so a lot of people were shitting on her, but she claims that she did stunts that they cut out, and they cut out a lot of stunts, and I do not get. And there's gonna be no 0.5, which usually a 0.5 is like stuff that didn't make the cut in the actual movie. And I don't know, it's very confusing to me. I don't like of course the Jackass film, I'm gonna like it, but it's like there's a compilation video, and it did make me cry a little bit because Johnny Knoxville was like talking about like he cried. Johnny Knoxville cried about not being able to work with bulls anymore, and it was nice to see Jackass in theaters again. Like I always love the theater when I go see Jackass. Like I've only ever seen it. I think I saw Jackass Forever like twice in theaters, or like 3 times. But you know, everyone always has like they're hooting and hollering and it's having a good time. But you know, it just was. I didn't go see it in theaters again. I don't think I would, because it's like I could just go buy all 4 movies at home and get the same experience. You know, not in a theater, but still. Bam's parents were at the premiere, and I really am happy about that. And they have said that Bam has they were there on behalf of Bam because Bam has no ill will towards the cast. And they did interviews, and they talked with Johnny and Tremaine, and they did photos. And the thing is Bam doesn't want to go talk to Johnny or Jeff again. And he's come out saying this quite a bit. And a lot of people do not agree with him because of it. And I get it because, you know, he says that he has no ill will and he's sober, but he just doesn't want to see them again. But I understand, you know, as someone who relates to Bam a lot and who also, take for example those 12 friends I brought to the theaters. I think I only talked to 2 of them out of those whole friends, you know. Of course, the boyfriend didn't last very long, but, you know, it's... You can feel no ill will towards someone, but you still just don't want to be friends with them or talk to them again. And that's totally acceptable, in my opinion. I think more people should do that, because it's you don't have any animosity towards them, but you also just don't feel the need to talk to them, because also it's bad memories for you personally. And I don't get why people are shitting on Bam for wanting that. You know, he is trying to control himself in the best way possible, and I think that instead of shitting on him, people should support him more for being able to recognize that he just doesn't want to go. He just doesn't want to do it, you know, and that's totally chill. I genuinely am very upset about people getting upset to Bam about it, because it's why does it matter that much to you? You know, when I watched Jackass Forever, or when I watched Jackass, the 3 movie marathon with my dad's family, that was probably the last time I had ever had a good moment with my stepmom and that side of the family. I haven't spoken to my stepmom again in 2 or 3 years, and it's for someone who has good memories of them regardless of whatever abuse and animosity took place, not even a year later. I say all this to say that Jackass is not really just about people kicking themselves in the balls. It's really just about bringing people together. And I've seen so many videos of people on Instagram Reels talking about it, and I just want to talk about it too in a full and length video, because I think Jackass really reminds people of their youth and of their friends and of goodwill. And I think that's why people really enjoy it. That's why I really enjoy it. And I think it will always remind me of just when I was 14 and what I was going through at the time, and how happy I was to live with my dad and my stepmom at the time. And it reminds me of my brothers all the time. It reminds me of my friends. It reminds me of just being 14. And to anyone who is my age, who are now getting into these films, who are now, finding out about the crew and finding out about themselves, I say that universally, these films, these people are so loved because they're such a good representation of friendship and camaraderie and community, really. I mean, Steve-O recently has gone on saying how Zach and Poopies both had really bad addictions during the filming of Jackass Forever and after, and he's helped them get out of it. I think Poopies even had an overdose on cocaine or crack. It was one of those during Jackass Forever, and he was like so scared of the public knowing about it. But Steve-O was there to help him out, and he's I think he's sober now, along with Zach, and him and Zach and Rachel have a podcast. I wanted to end this by saying that just because your youth is over doesn't mean you can't relive your best moments, even with people you've never talked to in years, and just because people you had a falling out with. I think if you can sit and look back on just like your memories, I think that it's something to be enjoyed about. And I'm glad that everyone from Jackass is doing okay now. And I think to end this off, if you gotta be dumb, better be tough.
Hello, I'm Johnny Knoxville. Welcome to Jackass.
Tonight, forever's gonna start tonight. Forever's gonna start. Once upon a time, I was falling in love. Now I'm only falling apart. There's nothing I can do. Total eclipse of the heart.